Alright, Shalom. First, I'd like to start by saying all praise to Yahweh by Shema Awashai, by Shema Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles that rule well, and salutations to the brothers that's doing the truth and sincerity. Now, today at class, me and the brothers was watching a documentary by the name of Crime and Punishment in America. You know, and it's a good document. They went into when they passed certain laws like or going into information on certain laws like prostitution, gambling, a couple other laws, and then when they passed the three strikes you're out law, and that's what I'm gonna get into today, and just bring out a couple scriptures on it. The three strikes you're out law basically consisted of if you did three major crimes, they would send you to jail for life, or sometimes the crimes didn't have to be major. It just had to be crimes that was did on possibly you had probably one felony or two felonies, and then the next crime could be some small crime, and they'll send you to life. But with that being said, Esau set his legislation up purposely to lock Jake up. So a lot of these crimes that these people were being, or I'm focused on the blacks, Latins, and Native Americans because that's who they were targeting when they did it. A lot of these crimes that they did were petty crimes. One, two. Esau put the drugs, the gangs, promoted the violence, and socially engineered Jake to fit a culture that would have it to where they would where they would get locked up and be killed off, and whatnot. So the laws that he wrote were unrighteous, and it was meant to kill off, keep Jake down and kill him off, man. So I'm going to start with this scripture. This is Micah chapter 2, verse 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. It's talking about the elites that run this society, man. The Rothschilds, the Bilderbergs, those who are actually, running this world, so to speak. Who actually, like I said, they put the drugs in the community. They invented the gangs, certain movements that were made. They had agent provocateurs invent them. Infiltrate them and make them seem evil to help push an agenda to pass legislations to kill Jake and them off or get them locked up, man. So destruction unto you elites, man. When the morning is light, they practice it, right? And that's what this documentary is about. This short documentary. Because it is in the power of their hands, right? And they got the power to do so. They got the money, they got the resources to, put stuff like this in order and get the results they wanted. It says, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away, right? And we know they took our lands from us, so they oppress a man in his house and even a man in his heritage, right? And they oppressed us and still oppressing us right now today with stuff like this. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go heartily, for this time is evil, right? So ultimately the elite's gonna be put in slavery that invented this stuff, and the ones that don't make it to slavery are gonna be put to death by way of race riots, pestilence, or thermonuclear missiles. Right, so here's the next scripture. This is Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1. It says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed. Right, so Esau set the system up to where they can lock Jacob and keep them down when they also put the poverty in the neighborhoods. They got it to where Jake can't, make it at all. Like, they don't have nothing, they can't survive. They can't eat, they can't work. If you the credit system that they set up, if you got too much debt, you can't get certain jobs. You can't get you can't make it in this society, basically, man. And then they came right back behind and put these laws in place and set up the what is it, order through chaos, the what else, what's the other doctrine, it's two more doctrines that they made. But yeah, they and then they persecute Jake and lock them up for certain crimes that they've done and give them a longer sentence than what they would give these Edomite devils, man. And at the end of this clip, they're gonna show an example of that. This one white dude they let go, and then he did another crime. And then they didn't give him they didn't prosecute him or persecute him behind the 3 strikes. You were outlawed. They let him go eventually. Let that have been a Israelite, then they would have locked him up for life, man. But it says to turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the people, from the poor of my people, right? And the right is for Israel to know who they are according to this Bible. Know that we got laws, statutes, and commandments that we supposed to be adhering to, because of who we are, man. And not only us, when the time comes, the Lord gonna have it to where the whole world bows down to the laws, statutes, and commandments, because that's one of the reasons why the curses are upon us and upon the world. Because everything is supposed to be governed after what's in this Bible. But this is Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 5. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my power commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Right? So we're supposed to be keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments. This would have kept us out of these prison systems. And those who did commit crimes that was worthy of death supposed to have been put to death, man. But Esau thought to change times and laws, man. Esau wanted to come up with his own system on how you want everything governed, which got the whole world in out of order, in chaos, in darkness. Keep therefore and do them. This is Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 6. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great, who have the Most High, Yahweh Shai, so nigh unto them, as the Lord our power is in all things that we call upon him for? Right. So, that's how the nation is supposed to be looking at us, man, behind ordering ourselves according to these laws, statutes, and commandments. But they look at us like the scum of the world, man. This is Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High. And we know Esau do that, changing the scriptures. And shall wear out the saints, all of our oppression of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and that's what he did. He got his own legislative system, his constitution, his he run himself off of common laws, you know, and stuff of that nature, man. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and the dividing of time. So yeah, that was the point. He changed times. He changed the laws. Now there's this is let me see. This is the last scripture. An Edomite said in this video also that you know, they wanted to enact these laws to get crime down, you know, and we know that wasn't the case. But even if some people are thinking like that, they obviously don't know this Bible. This government swore to uphold this Bible, but they don't keep not one law, not one statute in it. They don't tell no history. They don't do nothing, man. A lot of this stuff was written for an example, you know. This is Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7. It says, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Right, so all the crime and stuff that's going on in the world in general, the Lord created it. You know, all the evil, the killings, the murders, the Lord created that. The righteousness, the peace, you know, the light. The Lord created that, you know. But, you know, people want to go about doing, you know, well, these devils got the world going about doing wickedness because they're trying to bring in a new world order. That's another reason why a lot of these laws and legislations were passed, was to bring the world into chaos so they can bring down the order, which was to declare martial law and put everybody into a new world order, man. That's the whole agenda behind this, man. So with that being said, I'm going to play this documentary, this video.
Bodies all over, guys are shot in the head.
In the early 1990s, TV news bombarded viewers with scenes of murder, mayhem, blood and guts. The war on crime, by then 20 years old, seemed lost.
There's terrorism here in America. We live in fear, and it's not Beirut, and it's not Mogadishu.
But the murder of a California child by a man with a 20-year criminal history was a tipping point, and a wave of anger swept the country.
How could this maggot have slid through the system?
Another thing, they actually do be locking up their people also, you know. Jake and them get just, you know, are the targets in the equation, but they do lock up their people because these elites don't care nothing about their own. So
this many times without somebody saying, wait a minute, pal.
New sentencing laws called 3 strikes, you're out were seen as the answer to the repeat offender menace.
When you commit a third violent crime, you will be put away and put away for good. 3 strikes and you are out.
With crime near historic lows today, did the lock 'em up approach work, or did it get carried away? Despite its sunny reputation, California in the 1990s could be a dangerous place. Big cities were plagued with gang violence and drug crime. Living far from all that in the town of Fresno, Mike Reynolds, a wedding photographer, says he and his family felt secure.
Our greatest effort was to get our kids raised, give them a sense of values. We're just about ordinary people as you're going to find.
But in 1992, their lives became anything but ordinary. Their 18-year-old daughter, Kimber, home from college for a wedding, went out one night with friends in downtown Fresno.
As she went to get into the car, 2 men on a stolen motorcycle came up to her and tried to take her purse away from her. One of them pulled out a .357 Magnum and put it in her ear and pulled the trigger. There was nothing I could do. I've never felt so helpless in my life. She was a sweetie.
The men who killed Kimber turned out to be so-called career criminals. Both had long records and were fresh out of prison on parole.
I'm a wedding photographer. What in the world would I know about the criminal justice system and what keeps turning these criminals back out again? At some point, somebody had to do something to keep this from happening again.
Reynolds invited a dozen people to his home to bat around ideas. Ideas that crystallized in a proposal known as 3 strikes and you're out.
3 strikes was what this was. If you have 2 serious or violent priors, the 3rd felony could indeed put you away 25 to life.
Reynolds launched a one-man crusade, but didn't get far until another crime hit the news a year later.
There is an exceptional kidnapping story in Northern California tonight in the small town of Petaluma.
With her mother asleep in a nearby room, 12-year-old Polly Klaas was snatched from her home in the middle of the night. For 2 months, Americans were transfixed as the media covered the agonizing search for the girl, which ended in tragedy.
My beautiful daughter Polly is dead. America's child is dead.
Polly had been strangled and left in a field. Her killer had a violent rap sheet and had just been released from prison after serving half his sentence for a previous kidnapping.
3 strikes and you're out. Yes or no?
When this tragedy hit, all of the radio stations, they just said, hey, this guy would not have been on the streets if California's 3 strikes law was in place.
Support for 3 strikes and you're out is spreading like wildfire.
Reynolds' petition drive took off, securing 800,000 signatures.
We should start with a 3 strikes you're out bill.
The nation, not just California, was shocked. It was a shocking crime. And it emboldened a lot of people who had sort of given up hope of changing things.
The law passed in California by a wide margin, and by 1996, the 3 strikes wildfire had spread to 24 states and the federal government.
This was an angry era in American criminal justice.
Crime scholar Frank Zimring says Americans were angry because despite having put a record number of people in prison, crime still seemed out of control.
What was supposed to deliver people from their crime fears, what was supposed to reduce the homicide rate, was the imprisonment cure, and it hadn't worked. So that what happened in the 1990s is the transition from lock 'em up to throw away the key.
This is a 3rd strike case.
While in most states, all 3 strikes had to be violent or serious crimes, in California, the 3rd strike was unique.
What made it unique was that you commit any kind of a crime, the lowliest crime, that made you eligible for the 3 strike law.
Los Angeles District Attorney Gil Garcetti had originally opposed that idea, believing it would put too many low-level offenders in prison for life.
It was going to be a waste of money. We know that after the age of 35 or so, crime drops off with men like this. So we're going to keep them till 50, 60, 70, 80 years of age. And even though I spoke out strongly, we were drowned out.
3 years into the law, at this Los Angeles Kmart, Kenneth Keel was arrested for shoplifting $100 worth of items.
I had became addicted to crack cocaine at about the age of 20, 21. I figured if I committed a petty crime, the most I could get would be a few months, couple of years in prison.
But Keel had a prior record, including robbing people at ATM machines.
I discovered that Gil Garcetti was the DA and he was pursuing 3rd strike cases similar to mine. And that's when I realized that this is serious business. I'm an elected official and the voters told me this is what they want.
Prosecutors and judges had some discretion in deciding whether to apply the law, and Garcetti had become a vigorous enforcer. Keel was convicted and received a sentence of 25 years to life. 10 years after the law was enacted, the data was stark. Nearly half of the three strikes inmates were serving 25 to life sentences for non-violent crimes.
This law, I think, did not do what the voters intended. It completely overreached and resulted in judges having to mete out sentences that were disproportionate to the criminal conduct.
He's accused of stealing a slice of pizza from a group of children at a beach pizza parlor.
Life in prison. The media, which had fueled the public anger that led to the law, now had a field day with the most extreme cases. There was the pizza thief, the cookie thief, the bicycle thief. All received 25 to life sentences for petty crimes because of more serious crimes in their past.
The question that's being raised is this really a good idea?
The three strikes law ended up populating our prisons, which are grossly overcrowded, with petty thieves and drug addicts.
Across the country, backers of tough sentencing laws, like three strikes, credit them with a historic drop in crime. But crime researchers say the drop is also due to many other factors, including 100,000 new police on the streets.
We cannot simply prosecute or incarcerate our way to becoming a safer nation.
Today, the U.S. has the world's largest prison population at a cost of $80 billion a year, leading many liberals and conservatives to call for reform. Some studies show that lengthy prison terms have barely dented the repeat offender rate. And alternatives, like drug treatment and probation, can cost less and work better for low-level offenders.
I think it would be very healthy for the country and for the Congress to reevaluate the whole way we've dealt with prison.
Former Los Angeles DA Gil Garcetti is doing some reevaluating of his own.
The lesson learned from me is that I was the elected district attorney. I should have had the backbone to stick by what I said should be the law.
Garcetti now regrets some of the sentences his office sought against non-violent offenders, especially mentally ill and homeless people.
Those are the kinds of people that shouldn't have been sentenced under the three-strike law. Those are the people that should have received some help.
As for Kenneth Keel, he is now out of prison and helping other former strikers transition back into society. About 3,000 inmates are eligible for release after Californians voted in November 2012 to revise the three strikes law, so only violent or serious felonies count as a third strike, weakening the law voters had passed so overwhelmingly 18 years earlier.
The worst way to enact a law is to do it in an emotional, angry response to two horrific crimes. I feel for the Mike Reynolds and the Mark Classes of the world, but at the same time, they are not the ones who should be crafting and drafting our laws.
But Mike Reynolds, who fought the change in the law, says even the original one he crusaded for didn't keep the accomplice in his daughter Kimber's murder behind bars. Douglas Walker served 4 years for that crime, but after he committed another, a judge decided not to sentence him under three strikes. He's just been released again and is back in Fresno County, where the Reynolds family still lives.
There's a high probability that I could walk into a grocery store and we could be face to face. And that could happen. And the question is, what's he going to do and what am I going to do?
All right. Just as a side note, a lot of these Edomites that they be sentences really be Jakes and stuff too. So that they be locking up also. But as a matter of fact, I had one more scripture because these laws that they pass be having people riot and protest, and a lot of the laws and stuff they're passing now today got people protesting and rioting and actually killing their senators and certain government officials. But that's all Bible prophecy, and it's soon going to hit America at in the future. Slacky. Hold on. This is Second Ezra, chapter 15. Chapter 15, verse 15. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition, that's uprising against the government, among men, and invading one another, the race riots, race wars, class wars. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. And a lot of these kings and princes is going to be put to death, because these people are going to uprise against this government. Kings and princes is your presidents, your senators, and your governmental officials, man. Your kings could be your presidents, and your the princes is like the senators and certain other government officials. It says, verse 16, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So whatever they want to do in that day, they're going to be able to do, man. So these people got wild. The Lord going to put wild imaginations on a lot of these people. Stuff that they didn't see on TV, that they was programmed to watching for so long. The Lord going to put the Spirit on them to bring out what they've been watching. Because that's the time of judgment. That's the Lord creating good and evil and using the evil during this last and evil days, man. So with that being said, all praise to Yahweh Shema Shai. Double honors to the elders and apostles that rule well, and salutations to the brothers that's doing the truth and sincerity. Shalom.